Well, it's another Christploitation video, another shitty Christploitation flick. Hooray! Don't really feel like doing this by myself, so gonna unleash my magical summoning anti-Christian pagan powers of hollowness. So here we go. What is it? No, no, no.
Really, Boogie?
Wouldn't you really have hated if I summoned you while you were taking a shit?
Yeah, I would. That would be disgusting. That'd be so gross. And then, or like a shower, but at least I wouldn't be shitting. So, yeah.
Well, this movie was a piece of shit, so I mean, it kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah, it was really shitty, but not as bad as the first one, surprisingly.
Yeah. What's up, y'all? Boogie Knight here, and welcome back to another review. Well, another revisit for me. It's another first one for Ray. Once again, joined by the awesome Ray. What's up?
Not much. How are you?
Another day in paradise, or hell, depending on who's asking.
Yeah, I just got done doing laundry, so I have my hair looks like shit, and I have no makeup on, and I'm gonna order pizza and cry. I'm joking.
Well, this
Did
was
you just roll your eyes at me?
possibly.
Oh hell no! No one rolls their eyes at me.
I think this was another first and never interactions. Is me actually rolling my eyes at you.
Yeah, you're right. You're a dick.
Wait, did I actually out sarcasm you for once?
You know what? I'm more focused on a pizza right now, so I don't need this kind of negativity in my life, okay?
Okay, Felicia.
Oh, Lisa. You know how I
Anyways.
feel about that bitch.
Anyways, so we watched him. You can already tell how much we really just did not enjoy this movie by going off on a million different tangents. Honestly, though, this movie was not as offensive as God's Not Dead 1.
No, not it's what? Sorry, what did you just say?
I said, this is not as offensive as God's Not Dead 1. I mean, it's almost as offensive, but I mean, I don't think this is going to be as wide of an effect as the first one. I think the first one, if you had to compare the two of them, the first one would sway more opinions to go over to the overly religious side. This one was just kind of like a soapbox.
Yeah, this one was actually more cinematic and more dramatic, I would say, because like we'll get into it later, but like yeah, this one was actually way more interesting than the first one was, because the first one was very heavily biased and opinionated, whereas this one had a legit like a court case. It was like a legit reason, like, you know.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, like as you kind of alluded to, the first one was basically two butthurt individuals pissing on the third rail to see who got electrocuted first. I mean, it really was like a religious game of chicken, for a lack of better description.
Pretty much, you had two people with different opposing views butting heads with each other over a class course. Like, it was just a semester long. Neither one of them could have put their differences aside for one, just to, yeah.
Yeah, this is David A.R. White we're talking about here.
Let's not get back into that, because I'm getting pissed off thinking about it.
Well, okay, so this one, as you said, this one was a courtroom drama. I mean, I almost half expected in the intro to hear like the intro to what Law and Order. You know, if that was actually the intro, the Newest Boys actually did the introduction using the Law and Order theme, I would buy this movie just for that like 30 seconds intro.
I think you should learn how to edit your videos so you can make a video, your own version of that, and then put it on your channel. God's Not Dead too. With the
God's Not Dead in the courtroom.
Dun, dun, yeah.
But it's funny because at the end of this movie, during the credits, it talks about, like in the first one, all these ongoing court cases that are
where people were. Yeah. No, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, go finish. I finished first this time.
That's just like a man. No.
Hey! All right, I'm going to sleep. I'll see you in the morning.
Oh, fuck you.
If you really want to. Anyway, so we watched a movie.
Oh my god. Jesus, Boogie, where are you coming? Who are you?
Hey, I just finished recording an Off the Rails episode. The snark cannon is still in high supply.
You are snarky, let me tell you.
So you do like me. Anyway, so at the end of this movie, because we keep getting derailed, speaking of off the rails, there is a list of court cases, supposedly, about all these different things that this movie was inspired by, and you were actually the first one to point out the major, court case. You want to delve into that?
What do you mean? Which one? Like the one at the very end?
When it had the list of the court cases, and there was this the same sex case that you researched.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the list was actual court cases where people were being challenged for their faith. So they were okay. So throughout the whole movie, it wasn't really they weren't really victimizing themselves like they did in the first one, like very heavily in the first one. This, like I'm saying, this one actually had a legit court case. Like it was actually legitimately like a good cinematic plot, I guess. But at the end, but at the end, they had a list of actual court cases where people were being challenged for their faith. But like the last two were like hate crimes. One of them was a woman who owned an apartment complex, and she refused to rent out to a gay couple, so they took her to court over it. And then there was another one. It was kind of like that bakery where I think it was a bakery, actually. It might have been the same one. I don't know. But I think
it actually was. I think you're right.
Maybe. But anyways, it was something like that. And then, they took it to court and they lost because they were being homophobes. But basically, the actual movie had a legit case for someone being challenged for their faith. Whereas this was the examples they used were just people being homophobic pieces of shit and playing the victim, just like a Christian.
This movie, I feel like there were almost two screenwriters, because the first half of the movie, yeah, I saw Judy Moody the other day. No, the first half of the movie had a fairly well-structured plot with well-structured elements leading up to the court case, but then probably during the latter third of the movie, it just went back to the victimization. So it almost feels like David A.R. White saw this. He goes, nope, hang on, we're not doing enough victimization over here. We're not saying that Christianity is not being exploited enough, and then scraps the first screenwriter, but they ran out of time on their budget, so rather than start at the beginning completely with a new screenwriter, they just decided to splice the two together.
Well, just like the first one, though, when he was making arguments that were not really arguments, they were just kind of turning the questions around on them. That was, okay, so like, if they kind of did that in this one too, when they brought that freaking Christian forensic science person.
Oh my God.
So they had so many eyewitness testimonies, or like testimonies from people who didn't need to be in that court case period, like not alone in the movie. I think those are just fillers, because it was like most of the court case was unnecessary. And if they cut it, it would have been a really short movie. But they had to fill
2 hours of airtime.
Yeah, dude. They basically did what the first one did. They just had filler and counterproductive arguments that made no sense to the actual case. Like there was no argument. What's a good example? It's like, I can't think of a good example. I can't prove God exists, but you can't prove science is right or something. You know what I mean? Like that's all they argued, was how it was. Like they tried to turn it around on people.
We talked about this a little bit after the movie, was how I kind of compared it to the old play Inherit the Wind. And it's the same case in point about how, for those that don't know Inherit the Wind, it's about a guy who brings up Darwinism and the theory of evolution into a very religious small town, and he was put into jail, and it turned into this faith versus science, as opposed to the sheer fact he was just imprisoned for talking about science in a religious town. It's the same concept with this. In fact, this should have just been called God's Not Dead 2. The wind is still being inherited.
Okay, so are we just jumping into the plot now, or what?
No, I mean, I think, as usual, we'll save the plot at the end for those that actually do want to watch this piece of shit. The spoilers for the movie will be at the very end. But the main thing I want to talk about is just every character from the first movie was brought back alongside new characters for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Yeah, the freaking news anchor. Oh my God, I almost dropped my phone. Um,
You okay?
I almost dropped my phone. What was I gonna say? Yeah, the news reporter or the journalist on the first one who had cancer, she's back.
And she's
And
still really good friends with the newsboys.
yeah, that was the weirdest thing. Is like she acted. I don't know how to describe her character. She acted like this kind of like gatekeeper, where it was like they were like this ultimate hook. Like she was a drug dealer and she was the hookup. So it was like anytime someone was down, she'd be like, there's hope. Don't worry. She'd call her boys and they'd pray for her.
Oh my! No, because that's true.
Yeah.
It's like she was almost the MacGuffin of this movie. Like
Yeah.
she was
It
the
was like,
plot point that all of us to give access to the newsboys, which had once again maybe 5 minutes of airtime total.
I don't know, but it was funny because like it's like she's like literally the person that stands in the alleyway with a trench coat and be like, "Hey, you want to take a look at this?" And then opens it up and there's like drugs and like weapons and shit. Except in her case, it was just it was just a call to a stupid, underrated like freaking Christian gospel band.
You mean overrated? You mean overrated, not under? You said underrated. Wow, this movie, David Ayer White, really has taken its toll on you.
No, I meant overrated.
Sure, whatever lets
Overrated.
you sleep at night.
Okay, fine. I have a confession. I'm Hannah Montana. Veteran.
I
No,
thought you were about to bust into like the Foo Fighter song. I have a confession to make.
no, you're not that special. Veteran.
Well, that I'm used to hearing, but anyway.
Anyways, Tobey Maguire. Let's get on track here.
Okay, Felicia, whatever you say.
Anyways.
So we watched a movie. This review is going to have a million different diversions, just like this fucking movie itself. So regarding the characters, you have several new characters. The first one, of course, being played by none other than Clarissa and Sabrina, Melissa Joan Hart. You have Jesse Metcalf. You have fucking Ray Wise. Oh my God, he must have been starving for a role. You have a couple other characters, and then for whatever reason, you have all the characters brought back. I half expected to see Kevin Sorbo's corpse dancing on the wall. Actually, that would have made the movie a lot better when I think about it.
They didn't bring Josh back though, the annoying little whiny bitch.
Well, because they already had their quota of little whiny bitches in the movie.
They even brought back the Asian kid, which he literally had no purpose in that movie at all. He had like one or two big scenes just to find out he wanted to be a pastor. It was like couldn't you have been like a I don't know, like okay, so I mean the first one was really weird because it was all out of place. Like all the scenes were like mismatched and like it would randomly jump to a different character. This one didn't do that as much, but it still did. And the Asian kid just literally had no point in this movie. He should not have even been a character in this movie at all.
There should have been news reporter girl shouldn't have been in here. I mean, so apparently the newsboys prayed her cancer away, and she still has a full head of gorgeous ginger hair. So
yeah, the cancer was gone, but she's just as healthy as she was the day before.
I mean, she doesn't look like she survived a death march. She doesn't look like she's like spent months in the hospital. She's got a full head. I mean, it's almost like the Jerry Lewis show. He's got a full head of black hair.
I love how she called the band of all people. Like she didn't call her parents. She didn't call her like her siblings, her friends, anyone. She calls the band of all people. And she's like, my cancer's gone. And they're like, did you pray? I was like, yeah.
Did you? I'm thinking back in that scene when she calls the newsboys and there's the guy sitting in one of the chairs and he's just on his computer and he looks so bored with life. Like, why am I even here?
Right.
that was priceless. I'm like, well, I know where his mind is, but news reporter girl shouldn't have been there. The whole point of Asian boy, and I'm sorry for this sense or that sense really wrong from both of us, but really his name was never spoken in the movie. He never caught his name at one instance throughout the whole course.
That is so true. I don't know his name, but knowing the Christians, it'd probably be something very offensive.
Kind of like Muslim. In this case in point, like Asian boy is the new Muslim girl from the first one. He's having his own change of heart on his faith, only to be ostracized by his parent. It's a recurring theme.
Yeah, dude. But I mean, and it's weird though, because like he was in the first one, and he it was weird how he got like encouraged, like empowered to tell his dad he was a Christian. But
Which is
then
good.
this
Don't get me
one,
wrong. Be empowered to tell your parents something that you feel, called, using that term very loosely, to do. That's great.
yeah, no, totally. I respect that a lot. It takes a lot of courage to admit something that you're not wanting to admit. But in this case, though, it didn't make sense, though, because he already told his dad by the end of the first one that he was a Christian, essentially. And then this was like, what, a year or two later after the first one?
And the dad decides to randomly show up at his dorm.
To disown him. Like, okay, why didn't you do that? Like, literally when he texted you, God's not dead. Like,
Seriously.
it makes no sense.
That would have actually been a hilarious, like, post-credits scene when the dad texted back saying, "You're dead to me. Send."
But it's
God's not dead, but you are.
But it's in Chinese, so it has subtitles.
Well, no, this is a Christian movie. They would be whitewashing.
Oh, that's right. They did the Muslim girl.
I never thought I would see the day where I missed Kirk Cameron saving Christmas compared to this movie.
At this point, we're two movies into the God's Not Dead series, and I really miss Kirk Cameron.
I know. God, we're sad individuals. Yeah, so Josh is not present from the first one because he's probably crying at a corner somewhere saying, God forgive him for doing whatever. But these are characters that have no purpose being in the movie other than for callbacks. They were there for maybe a few scenes. Of course, David A.R. White and his African buddy are still there strictly for shenanigans' sake. Oh, and they bring back the rental car guy for 1 minute.
Yeah, what was the fucking point of that? Okay, first of all, the blonde guy, though, ever since the first one, when he let Kevin Sorbo die in agony, I can't look at his face. Every time I saw him, I just got filled with so much anger. I was like, I want to punch this guy so fucking hard in his fucking mouth. I want to break some teeth because he just annoys the fuck out of me. And he's so smug. He just has a smug, like, smile all the time. Like he's always right and you're always wrong because he got God on his side. It's like, you let someone die. You murdered someone.
Seriously, no, I agree with you. Like, he has this permanent smile on his face. Like, even when he has the heart attack or the ulcer, whatever happens later on in the movie, he's still lying in the hospital bed with this small smile on his face, like his missionary buddy just pulled his pecker.
Yeah, dude, he acts like he's like always accomplished or something. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, he acts like he's always, like, in his mind, he is always right. And he's like wise, and he's just like, when the character finds out something, he already knew all along. Like, he's that kind of, he's like a Mary Sue from a male Mary Sue. He's just so perfect, nothing can go wrong, and he doesn't need to learn anything. But he lets Hercules die on a fucking road.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too. As we talked about in the last review, faith is believing in something that cannot be tangible, or cannot be physically described. So by saying that I'm right because I have faith, you are immediately disproving the concept of faith.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, that's true.
So the fact that he's got this little, like, 3-pipe high smile on his face, and of course alluding to the fact throughout the course of the movie, saying like, oh, I'm not going to get called into jury duty for this thing. It's 3 times lightning's going to strike, and then his African buddy's kind of like, mm-hmm. But I still want to see a shenanigans movie about just David A.R. White and his African friend.
I don't, because he just annoys the fuck out of me. I'm sorry. Like, unless it's like unless it's like an Eli Roth movie and he gets horribly chopped up and eaten by, like, a tribe of cannibals, then I don't want to watch him at all. I want to see.
What would be great is if there was an Eli Roth movie and, like, David A.R. White's character got, like, dismembered, but his hand was still twitching just long enough to high five his African friend. Because there's that one scene at the end when they did their little back and forth of the God is good all the time, and all the time God is good, like, bro five. Like, all of a sudden, like, they just ended world hunger.
I know. That's what I'm saying. He's so proud of himself for something he didn't do.
He didn't even have a reason to be in the movie other than the fact that he's the producer of the whole thing. He was in the movie just to steer in the same case that Kirk Cameron did in Saving Christmas. He was there to react. He had maybe 30 seconds of dialogue in the courtroom, and then he has a heart attack or an ulcer or whatever it is and gets wheeled out. He's like a white Kanye West.
I just realized how ironic it was that he watched someone die in the first one, and then he gets an ulcer in the second one. God wants to kill you.
God's not dead, but he wants you dead. Come to think of it, this movie would be a great revenge piece when you think about it.
I know, add the dramatic music, and then somewhere in the clouds, God's like, done.
Well, I mean, and throw in the fact, too, there were so many other characters that had no reason to be there except for, like Goth Girl.
Yeah, well, my theory was that she was, like, one of those characters where it's, like, I don't know what they call it, but it's, like, that kind of character that they don't have a place, and they're not really a character, but in the end, it's revealed, like, they're, like a goddess, or
Deus
like
Ex
an alien, or a spirit, like something that was just there to observe. Like, that's what I got from her. Like,
essentially, I think the literal term is called a Deus Ex Machina.
Okay, well, either way, my theory was that she was supposed to be an angel overlooking the court case. Because at the end, when she saw the tattoo on her neck, it was like,
a cross.
Oh, yeah. Like, what did that prove, though? Like, what did that show her? Like, what did that prove? Like, I don't get it.
That Christians can take many different forms. They don't have to be suit and tie people. I don't know. This movie was so convoluted, it still didn't make any sense. I'm not as pissed off as I was after watching the first one. I'm more confused in it. As you would say when you see my pictures, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Just this movie, like I said, it was slightly better than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But not by much.
Oh, and goddamn Ray Wise character. I mean, Ray Wise basically plays the devil in this movie.
Yeah, like, he took it really personal too. He was like, "It's a Christian. I must bring her down."
I mean,
like,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say Ray Wise has a tendency to get into characters with him. Like, any movie that I've seen Ray Wise in, I mean, he embraces the role hook, line, sinker. So, I mean, good for him. I mean, but you can embrace your character kind of like that scene in Django Unchained when he slams the table and his hand starts bleeding. That actually happened. But, yeah, that was an unscripted event when what's his face? DiCaprio's character slams his fist on the table and his hands cut wide open. That was not scripted at all.
Did not know that.
Yeah, that was a completely thing. So, I mean, if you can embrace your role, that's great. But the level of dedication of Ray Wise's character playing the devil for all intents and purposes, like it was the last temptation of Christ, was completely over the top for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, no, it was really stupid because it was just Christians portraying their victimization again because she was a Christian, and he was like, because he even admitted in the movie too, like, that he just, how did he say it? It was like along the lines of how, like, he wants to see these people. What did he say?
It was something like, we're going to make a lot of money. So it was all for self-gratification as opposed to trying to prove a point. So yeah. It was like The Devil's Advocate, the movie with Keanu Reeves and Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Which was another wonderful piece of trash, by the way.
But we're focusing on this piece of trash right now.
Yeah, but this wasn't even a fun piece of trash. This was just a bad piece of trash. This was like a wet fart in the shower piece of trash.
So does that mean God's Not Dead one was a shit in the shower? You just stomp it down the drain with your foot.
Yeah, it was one of the things when you think you're just letting off a fart and you drop a deuce. Okay,
I just want to jump on this topic real quick. How do people not know when it's a shit? Come on. You should know your body by now. Let's go, people. You should know when a fart.
God's Not Dead 4, the shit theory.
The shart.
Well, why not? They already jumped it once in this trilogy. Why not just continue it as an ongoing trend? But then, I mean, okay, and then here's some other things. What was the deal with the Ray Wise meeting with the parents?
Yeah, well, because it was their daughter that started all this, remember?
Yeah, but there was no benefit for them other than, like, to be in there, other than just to sit there and look disappointed.
You're absolutely right. Like, why did he contact them? Because, like, if anything, it should have been okay. So, if anything, it should have been the daughter because she was the one that asked the question.
Precisely.
And then he should have been like trying to tempt her to turn against her. That would have been made more sense. But the fact that he went to the parents makes no sense. And fucking okay, the mom of that character, who was the mom from Wizards of Waverly Place, she looked like she had no idea where she was in the whole movie.
I swear to God, they probably chloroformed her just so that she could be in this movie to look confused.
She had the same look, like, oh my God, I just realized she was the second character from Wizards of Waverly. No, never mind. Josh from the first one's from Good Luck Charlie.
Yes.
And the mom is from Wizard. Okay, so there's a lot of Disney Channel stars in here. I'm starting to notice a trend here.
Wouldn't it be great if Britney Spears starred in the fourth? If there was a fourth one and Britney Spears was the main role?
No, I would not watch it.
But
well, I would, but I wouldn't.
I was gonna say, please, you would.
I wouldn't review it.
But I mean, parents, the parents popping up in the second one, it's almost like, like it was basically the classroom in the first one. I mean, the whole point was them just to sit there and look pissed off. And what I mean, that document that Ray Wise made them sign, was that an NDA? What, I mean, it was never explained what he was making them sign before going to court. He's like, then you sign this, and we make a lot of money, and then we send her off to a school, and we're going to prove God is dead.
Yeah, what was his purpose? Like, what was the point of his character? Like, he it was a court case, dude. Like, what the? Oh my God. Yeah, none of it makes sense.
It really did. I mean, it was a bunch.
Contracts?
And that's, once again, and that's what I keep thinking, like, there was two screenwriters for it. There was the point leading up to it, which was fluid and cohesive. And from the moment Ray Wise's character, with his black slacks and his black shoes, steps out of the black Cadillac, mind you. Are we seeing a trend here, folks? Probably. The moment David or Ray Wise's character's feet hit the ground, the whole tone of the movie changed from being this teacher getting ridiculed and being, told to renounce her faith, to this courtroom drama where that's when the butthurt just really kicked off.
Okay, well, like I said, so the court case aspect of this movie, Melissa Joan Hart's character arc in this movie was legit. Okay, like, it was really, really, really legit. Like, it was actually, if you take everything out and just watch the movie with the court case, and then you take out the, like, unnecessary fillers, it's actually kind of a good movie. Like, it makes sense because it's someone being challenged in a way that changes their character. Like, and it was a legit reason too. Like, she okay, so she's a Christian, and she answered a student's question, and she got into a whole shitload of trouble. But and they even point this out in the movie too. Like, she didn't, like, lead the class in prayer. She didn't make them read scriptures. She didn't do anything religious. She answered a simple question, and the whole movie and everything just got blown out of proportion. Which, honestly, and I hate to say it because I'm so anti, like, religion, but, like, she was a victim in this case. Like, all she did was answer a question. Like, she had a legit reason. She had a legit case against her, like something that would actually be
something that could work in her favor.
Well, no, like something that Christians could actually use as a legit case about challenging your faith.
But then they completely just threw it out the window halfway through the movie.
Yeah, and it was like I said, it was actually really, because all she did was answer a question, and she was being targeted and attacked for it. It was like, that was actually a good plot. Like, that made sense. That's how. Okay, so if you're gonna victimize a religion, that was the best way to do it, because I was on her side from start to finish. But yeah, like, it's just, I don't know. And then they kept throwing in all the characters that didn't need story arcs. They kept having people testify that proved nothing, like no points to the case at all. So
it pretty much went back to the God's Not Dead 1 concept about you're pretty much just arguing against yourself. and all these characters that had no build-up whatsoever leading up to it. They were just randos. I mean, I think David Ayer White was giving like $5 to somebody on the streets to just sit in a chair and act.
Pretty much, right?
That's because that's what it was. These are characters that had no interaction with Melissa Joan Hart's character at all. The only the only character that she had pretty much for the time being had interaction with 3 different people up until the court case. Her dad, the girl who I think her name was Brooke. Oh, and by the way, Melissa Joan Hart's character's name is Grace. Yes. Once again, if Film Brain was here, you'd be hearing symbolism like in the background.
But yeah, dude, like,
and then the principal or the dean or whatever it is of the classroom where this whole thing. No, it was the principal because this was a high school instead of a college setting.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, it's like I literally thought all 3 movies took place in a courtroom. That's why I asked you like which movie does this take place in? And yeah, oh shit, I forgot where I was leading with this. Never mind.
Well, okay, well, this movie had a lot of time. We spent a lot of time harping on this movie during the movie just because none of it made any sense.
Well, so, that's the irony, though, is like I said, we take out everything except for the court case and the filler. It's actually a good movie. Like, it's actually a movie about, like, being persecuted for your faith. And that's what they're trying to go for. And it went right over their heads with how to, present it. Like, they did that, and that's what I'm saying. That's why it's slightly better than the first one, because the first one was just blatant victimization with no proof. This one, she was actually being attacked for a question she answered, and it was like it was like very cinematic, you know. It was like, God, I can't talk.
Just wait till you see my Off the Rails episode. I start hacking along up.
Yay.
Anyways, I mean, I agree with you, and it's a shame to see a movie with this kind of potential just completely go back off the cliff and go straight into the victimization piece.
Yep.
This movie could have been so decently that even non-religious people could at least have a modicum of respect for the direction that it took.
Yeah, because like it had potential. It had a good plot. Like it actually captivated me, because I mean, a good movie, like a good plot, should captivate you, and you should, you know, whether it's the protagonist or antagonist, a good character and a good character arc kind of hooks you, you know, like it hooks you onto that story arc. So I legit enjoy it. Like what's the word? I was legit on her side, basically. Like I was on her side because she was actually being persecuted for being a Christian.
Yeah.
And like I said,
on unfounded grounds as well. There was no reason for her to be persecuted in such a format. And okay, so I can understand from the point of view that it's, you know, you have to renounce her taking action when the school board was like, you know, you have to renounce your faith. You have to stop bringing in religion into the workplace. And she defies them. Okay, that's cool. Okay, let's take this up to, you know, and mind you, they didn't do the research. So of course, they're not going to take it up to the teachers union. They're not going to take it up to the ACLU. They're not going to go, this movie's not going to take it through the normal chain of command that any person with a 2-digit IQ would even do. You know, there's other ways around. No, they're just going to go straight to court. But you know what? That's cool. I can respect the fact they want to escalate it high up the food chain. But the minute they walked in the courtroom and this whole thing just turned into a soap opera of fate is when it just lost me completely.
Yeah, no, like, yeah, it made no sense at all. Because then they started bringing in people who, like the first one, just presented, like, counter arguments and didn't really, like, arguments that didn't work in her favor at all. It was kind of like educating people on religion, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, and then I don't know what counts as a spoiler and what counts as the review.
No, I mean, we're throwing it all out there. We're talking about the plot now anyway, so.
Okay, so the thing that really made me laugh was the fucking forensic scientist who was a Christian.
Who
He
was a former atheist turned Christian, you mean?
yeah. He
Let's get our story straight.
He literally convinced the whole courtroom that science didn't know how to solve like fingerprint murders and shit, but God did.
Yes.
He's saying, yeah, he says fucking science doesn't know how to do what it does, like solve crimes and shit. God does. How the fuck does God do that? Like, do you like when you see a fingerprint, you just put like a Bible against it and then look up and there's a name? How does that work? Like, are you really trying to tell me science doesn't work? Really? You're a forensic scientist? Oh my god. Whatever.
You know what I'd love to see is Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock Holmes played by God.
What? What?
Because wasn't Robert Downey Jr. In the Sherlock Holmes films?
Yeah.
Could you imagine that as like the God version of Sherlock Holmes starring Robert Downey Jr.?
Oh, if you like played God.
Exactly. So God's proving all these sciencey things in like Robert Downey Jr.'s like classic eccentric like behavior.
All the while Melissa Joan Hart is still waiting for her court hearing.
Exactly. Hey, you gotta have faith.
But no, dude, like that was the thing that really pissed me off.
The look on your face when he made that exposition dump talk about how science, I think your exact words were, okay, what the fuck?
Okay, I'm sorry, but like if you go to a doctor with medical degree, they did 8 years of science or college and they got their doctorates and they're a doctor, but they're Christian, you're gonna be kind of iffy about that because you want someone who's gonna help you with things like with your body, like biological things. You don't need someone judging you because of their religion.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like
go ahead.
Well, I have like transgender friends. Like, you know, they don't need to go see a Christian doctor and tell them that they were born that their biological gender is what God gave them. You know, like that's not the reason why they're there, and that's not your job to tell them that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to go to a Christian doctor. So the fact that he's a forensic scientist and he's a Christian. It doesn't mesh. Like science and religion do not mesh at all.
And I'll even do you one more. Is I've been diagnosed with depression since I was probably 15 years old, roughly, give or take. And when I first started feeling it, you know, my family wanted me to go to a religious person first, and I completely scoffed at them. I'm like, no, I am not going to have somebody call. When, of course, my faith at that point was already waning pretty strongly. I'm like, no, it is something that has to do with being up here. It's a chemical imbalance.
Yeah, dude. And that's the thing is that, and I'm not saying that all religious people are that religious, that they don't count science, but there is a lot of people like that, though. Like, and you don't even have to be religious to be like, oh, you're depressed, just smile, be happy.
Fake it till you make it.
Pretty much. And it's like, that's, yeah, I have a hard time, especially with such an advanced position in I guess science, like maybe police work. What category does forensics fall under?
I mean, that's a biochemical area of forensics. I mean,
yeah, dude. I mean, they get DNA from crime scenes, fingerprints, hair, blood, semen. Like there's methods to prove someone's identity through DNA. You're telling me science can't do that? That God helps you solve murders?
You know, God has got a universe to run. He decides to secretly come down to every single crime, pick up the pubic hair, and say this is the person's identity.
Well, I made this point in one of my videos too. It was like, we have like children in third world countries who are starving, who are being murdered. There's people being raped, and it's like, God cares that you found your car keys, Karen. I'm you know, come on. God really helped you find your car keys. God helped you get Starbucks that morning because you were having a bad day. Come on.
Seriously, if that was the case scenario, I wouldn't be working. I would be, you know, doing YouTube full time.
Right? If we all pray to God, we wouldn't be on the brink of World War III.
Yeah, of course not. Exactly. Who would have thought? But I mean, that's the direction this movie took, was when the court case happened. there was no point for any reason. The only likable character in the movie besides Grace was Jesse Metcalf's character, and it was even it was more tolerable than anything, because for him it was almost like a learning experience, which I can respect that. He's like, I don't believe in the same things you do. You don't believe in the same things I do, but I'm willing to work with you towards this common cause, and that was respectable.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Her story arc, her character arc was actually really freaking good, because it brought in a character who doesn't necessarily believe what she does, but they work together to find a common goal. Like, that is compelling storytelling. That's how you tell a story. That's how you make characters grow. The only thing that would have made this better, though, and I'm not saying she was wrong, because she wasn't.
Right.
Like, hypothetically, though, the only thing that could make this better is if she maybe, like, kind of had a change of character. Like, maybe she thought, I don't know, but like,
I know where you're coming from. I think that the only thing that would have made her character a little bit better is not so much, developing, but she maybe became more empowered.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, I guess she kind of did, but I don't know.
No,
I mean, there's that one scene where she was all crying to her dad because she didn't know what to do, and then they had that vigil in her yard where they started singing to her, and then she felt like empowered to like keep going.
Yeah, but then it was promptly quashed at the end when Jesse Metcalf's character lit into her that unscripted rant. So it was like, for a brief period of time, you could almost see like the power coming back to her, whether it's like, okay, let me kind of go off on a tangent here for a second. Okay, yeah, people use faith, as we talked about in the last video. We talked about how faith is a comfort method. It's a coping mechanism. It's a way to feel better about yourself. And the entire course of this movie, the faith was being basically pitted against her, and it almost felt like she was not using faith as a comforting method. She was using it as a, not even a crutch, as a wet blanket. And then there's this brief glimmer during the vigil with the kids when she kind of see the power come back to her, and then flash forward about 30 seconds later and she's back to playing the victim.
Yeah, and that's true, because like, yeah, because if anything, she should have stayed strong in her faith. Yeah, I agree with you on that one, actually. I really, really do, because that's a good point.
And here's the thing too. It's almost like we're gonna go back to that old parable about Jesus in the desert, when Satan challenged him like 3 or 4 times, and at the end Jesus finally said, "You know what? Enough is enough. Get the hell out of my sight." This
we've hooked up once before. No joking.
Exactly. You didn't give me a reach around last time, so get out.
Okay, I have a funny meme to show you when we're done with this.
Okay.
It's super offensive, so I'll send that to you after we're done.
Sweet. It's the same case in point. Is at that point, after the vigil, Melissa Joan Hart could have been like this type A personality, basically telling Ray Wise's character to bend over and get fucked, but she didn't.
Exactly. No, you're right. Because the thing though is that she was very cautious when the student first asked her. Like, yes. She knew she could get in trouble for it, but
which was great.
Yeah, dude, and that's awesome. Like the fact that she was cautious about it, and then she got in trouble, and then when her faith started to dwindle, that vigil should have like brought her back, and then she should have been super confident, and that would have been a really amazing story arc. Mm-hmm. Despite being a Christian, I would have been like, hell yeah, you go, girl.
Well, it goes back into what we just said earlier. You don't have to agree with somebody, but you can respect the steps that they are taking to rectify the situation.
Exactly. And the thing though, she wasn't wrong. Like I said, it doesn't matter if she's a Christian or an atheist, she was wronged, and I was for her character the entire way. And it's like that, I was rooting for her from start to finish. So if only she had gained that strength to be super confident and badass, that movie would have been awesome.
The only character that actually showed true character progression was Jesse Metcalf's character. You saw a slow build up of not really wisdom per se, but of confidence. So he started as this meek little, I'm not sure what the hell I'm doing, but apparently I rolled the dice and I lost, so apparently we're stuck together. Hooray. And by the end of it, he had this surge of confidence. And you could see it in the way his character was. When you first met him, he's unshaven. He's kind of really shoddy looking. He's really just kind of meek and mousy looking around. At the end of it, clean shaven, really nice cut suit. And then he completely brings the conversation to this point where Melissa Joan Hart's character doesn't, she can't really react, like she can't think about it. Like he really drove the point home to get the reaction that he needed in order to sway the audience, the jury, into siding with them. You don't see that in any other character. You don't see that with Melissa Joan Hart. You don't see that with Ray Wise's character, who was the most static individual during the course of this movie. You definitely don't see it in David A.R. White's character.
His character, I'm telling you, he was the Mary Sue of the film, because he had this persona, like he could do no wrong, like he was God incarnate or something, like he was just so perfect. Like I can't stand him. But the Asian kid, he kind of had, well, not really, because like you said, it was like the Muslim girl in the first one. He got disowned, and then all of a sudden he's like, I want to be a pastor.
Well,
and then it's like, good for you.
Asian guy was kind of like a reverse bell curve. He started as this relatively confident individual, and then he had the fallout with his dad, and then he suddenly realized he can play the piano, and then you see him go back up towards the end when he tells David A.R. White's character, I want to be a pastor.
Yeah, the news reporter absolutely had no point in being there. Like I said, she was just the drug hookup to a prey. That's all she was. Like she had no purpose in that. And then who was another one that they brought back?
Oh, Asian boy, news reporter, David A.R. White, and his African colleague, who apparently didn't have a reason to be in this movie either, because when he first comes back in, he's like, oh, you're back.
Yeah, he was just like that weird sidekick that has no purpose in the show, but he's just there.
He's the Uncle Bill of the movie.
No, but seriously though, like a lot of those people had no purpose in the movie. If it was just the court case, it would have been good. It would have been a good movie. Like I would have been surprised to have been so drawn into a Christian movie, especially if it made sense that she was actually being persecuted for her religion. That was the point they're trying to prove. Oh,
I mean, and the fact that it just took a snowball effect. Like there's that one scene when all the pastors are having brunch, and Fred Thompson, the politician, shows up and says, we have to, whoever is in charge of the ministry for that area, which doesn't exist, by the way, in reality, they had to surrender their sermons for, what was it, 90 days review?
Something like that.
So, why was Fred Thompson's character in there?
Well, it was like the Duck Dynasty guy in the first one. Like, the writing of the first two. Okay, the writing in this one was a little bit better, but they added way too many fillers and way too many unnecessary plots and characters. But, like, the writing in general just sucks, dude. Like, they, you know, if Christian media could just write a good, if they had really good writing and it really captivated, they didn't victimize themselves, and it was good plots and good stories, they would actually probably be in mainstream media, you know? People would actually want to go see it. Because, like, I don't want to go see a movie where every Christian character is being wronged or persecuted or victimized in some way or another for being Christian. I want to see a movie, where people actually get tested on their faith and people actually, like, grow as characters and blah, 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 blah. Like, come on.
Seriously. No, I mean, I agree with you on that 100%. I mean, and that's the whole, we're jumping around a lot, but that's because there's nothing really that solidifies this movie as being like a smooth ride. It is completely, just all over the place, and bringing in these witnesses and this constant back and forth of David A.R. White trying to make light of the situation from the jury stand. At that point, you know, when he got the heart attack, are they also like, yeah, God's just telling you to shut the hell up.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, it's just, like I said, this movie, if it was just the court case and it didn't have anything else, like none of the filler, it would have been a really good movie for a Christian movie. Like, I could write a better Christian movie. I could make it way better, and I can make people sympathize with Christians more than this movie could.
Well, yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too, is even at the the entire, like, the last 15 minutes was a complete callback to the first one when Jesse Metcalf's character is basically accusing Ray Wise of saying that Faith is going to be outlawed. It's a complete tie into Josh's character in the first one, saying Faith is going to be outlawed and we are going to have to wear special badges, and basically compares it to the Holocaust.
Oh my god. Well, Josh's character was just a whiny bitch. Okay, that's his character. But yeah, dude, like, what is with comparing it to the fucking Nazis? Oh my god. And you know, this is what the ironic part is, that the Nazis did everything under God.
Yeah,
and a lot of Christians will disagree with that, but it is historically accurate. Like, it is legit the reason why it's like their slogan, or like their phrase was like, under God we serve, or something like that. I forgot.
Something like that, yeah.
But yeah, they did that for God. So the fact that they're comparing a tragedy that they kind of caused, not good.
It was so complete BS. And then, of course, there's the big tragedy. You know, they win. Ray Wise's character has to walk out the door, and it goes back to the Newsboys, which has no real reason to be in there at all, just to do the last song saying God's not dead, he is truly alive.
Which they fucking took from the first one. Actually, when I first saw that part, I thought they just cut I thought it was just footage from the first one. I was like, wouldn't that be weird if this was like like, was it like happening at the same time as the first one?
You actually said that, and they're in the movie.
And then the redhead would be like, 1 minute she's crying because she has cancer, and then the next scene she's like calling them for help.
Oh my god. It's just this movie. While this movie was not as heinous as the first one, it was pure and utter confusion. Too many subplots. There was more exposition dump in this movie than Last Airbender.
That's funny.
I mean, think about it. It's just subplot upon subplot upon subplot. It's like, hey, kid, come here. Tell me about the prince. Well,
it was like they were trying to do a God version of Game of Thrones, but they toned it way down, so it was just multiple character story arcs happening at once, and it made no sense.
Yeah, but Sean Bean wasn't in this movie, so he couldn't die at the end.
Melissa Joan Hart's
you just had Ray Wise sitting there looking disappointed.
Yeah, now that I think about it, you're right about the parents. They literally had no point in that movie or that court case at all. What was it? Was it to sue her because it was their daughter that asked the question?
It was something. No, because they signed something like it was almost like an NDA. Like before the court, it was something like, it even talks about some kind of monetary settlement, which has nothing to do with the course of this movie. She is being taken out on her face. She is not being sued by the school board. She is not being sued by Brooke's parents. She is doing this. There was nothing talking about a monetary settlement with this. The only finances were ever mentioned was when she is crying to Jesse Metcalf while they're eating Chinese food, which sounds really good all of a sudden.
Dang it, I was going to get a pizza. Now I want panda.
Why not both?
You're right. I'm going to get both.
See? There you go.
Dang it. I'm going to get a pizza. Anyways.
Well, anyway, so she's crying to Jesse Metcalf's character, and she's like, I'm going to be ruined. He's like, no, you're not. He actually says that. He's like, no, you're not. So the Jesse Metcalf's character, for being the non-religious one, is more spiritual than she is. Because if this was the case, she'd been like, God will provide for me despite all this case. But no, she is having a panic attack and a nervous breakdown, and leave it to Jesse Metcalf's character to be like, no, you're not. This is not the end of the world.
Well, to be fair, though, I mean, psychologically, people handle stress and trauma in different ways. There's some people that take it and they deal with it, and then they become stronger. There's people who bury it at the back of their head and just forget about it, and then there's people who let it torment them for the rest of their lives.
So bad.
I actually know someone who recently was doing really inappropriate things to women online, and when he got exposed, he quit everything. So it's like, instead of just handling it cool, he just let it get to him, and then he fled. So it was like, the fact that she was dwindling down on her faith is understandable, because she really loves her job, and it's what she's really good at. and that's suddenly being taken away because she answered a question.
Mm.
It was
No,
an
I agree with you.
innocent question, and she's not the one that even instigated it. So yeah, she's feeling attacked, she's feeling persecuted, she's feeling scared, you know, and that's, I understand that, because when you're scared, sometimes you do things you don't understand. Like sometimes even the strongest of people can be crying on the inside. So I get where she's coming from.
Oh, no, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm just thinking from an outside. I mean, you're talking, once again, you're talking to somebody who internalizes everything. I mean,
Yeah.
but if we were dealing with this strictly on a religious concept, that would have been prime real estate for her to be like, well, God will help me get through this.
No, and
That's
that's where
what I was trying to imply.
No, exactly. And I agree with you on that. Like, if this was a Christian movie, she should have found her strength and empowerment through God and then handled it like a fucking pro. Because it makes sense. Because that would have been amazing story character progress. Being, you know, because like she's kind of like in the closet kind of with her religion because, because like when the girl asked her about her brother and she's like, do you believe in God? Like, it was a simple question, you know, like she wasn't. But the girl asked it in a classroom and she knew of the consequences, but she still answered it. And then all of a sudden she was being attacked. So it would have made sense for her story to just be empowered by it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, but at the same time, it was Jesse Metcalf's character who came to her aid and be like, yo, it's going to be okay. So it was almost like the reverse Christian effect, which I can also respect for Jesse because that just showed the character development and growth for him. But other than him and Melissa Joan Hart's character, I didn't have respect for anybody in this movie.
Well, it's like even the girl, Brooke, who started all this, like, she tried to fight it and everything, but all she did was get like a protest together saying God's not dead. She didn't actually contribute anything to this movie or the court case at all. She just got a whole bunch of kids to say God's not dead, and then at the end, fucking like, okay,
complete with Southern accents.
this is the part that makes no sense. When she won her case and they left and they were shouting God's not dead, what did that have to do with anything?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was like that was not literally the case. Like the first one, that was the assignment, so that makes sense. God's not dead because God, he wanted him. This one was not about that. This one was about a fucking teacher answering a religious question. How was God? I don't understand that. How was he dead?
And how did these people come up with the phrase "God's not dead" when they weren't even in the first one? Unless, you know, Asian boy and what's her face news reporter girl decided to spearhead this, in which case they were uncredited for said protest.
You're right, because none of the people who were at the concert in the first one when they said God's not dead, or how did that happen? Did the concert say it and then?
Because
they wanted them to text them. Yeah, so at the concert, so everyone who was at the concert at the end of the first one was not even in the protest. So it was just random placed. God's not dead.
Just for filler, and that's all this movie was. It was just 2 hours of pure filler, and as you said, this could have been dumbed down to like 15 minutes.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I spent what $3 on that fucking shitty movie. I just spent $3 on the first one, and that was even worse. Like,
so you're saying I need to send you a $6 Amazon gift card to compensate for this?
No.
Well,
no.
Well, we will be watching a better movie next time, so.
Yes, and I'm really looking forward to that. But still, I'm just saying, like, I've made unnecessary purchases before, but save your money, people. If you're not overly religious and you think every religious movie is like a God's gift, the reviews. Oh my God, the reviews.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
When I was about to purchase the movie, when I was about to rent the movie, I literally scrolled through the fucking reviews. They were all 5 stars. I watched it and I'm like, how is this a 5-star movie?
Seriously, I mean, it has to have been like David Ayer White was just telling his friends to leave a 5-star. It's almost like a certain content creator that we both know that's like demanding attention. And he's probably like, this person's probably giving out like money or gifts to other people just to like review, like leave like 5-star comments or likes and subscriptions.
Well, I might be wrong on this. So don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure there was like only like 5 comments, like 5 reviews. But I could be wrong because sometimes I don't look at the second page. But like there wasn't that many, but they were all 5-star, and it's like, look, I get it, you're a Christian, but you should be smart enough to know what a good film is, even if you don't agree with it.
Exactly.
Like I said, I'm not even religious, but if this movie was just about Melissa Joan Hart and the court case, it would have been a good movie. So, but the fact that it wasn't, yeah, that just complicates it.
Classy.
Ooh, yeah, sexy. So.
But yeah, we've been ranting about this for about an hour now. So once again, another long review about us just getting pissed off at religion.
But this one wasn't as bad though. The first one really pissed me off. The only one that really blatantly pissed me off was the forensic scientist who said God solves murders, and fucking David A.R. White. That's the only people that pissed me. That's the only thing about this movie. Otherwise, it was not bad. As sad as that is.
Yeah, I mean, this movie had, once again, had potential to be somewhat decent, but in the end, it was the same victimization piece for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, dude, like they had potential to make this a legit case of being victimized, like of being victims, but they did the whole, like you said, they did it all wrong.
But that's just our review. So do you want any final thoughts you have on this anus turkey?
Well, unless you are sexually attracted to eating shit out of a toilet bowl, don't watch this.
Yeah.
You want to? Yeah, they call it toilet treats. Have you heard of that?
What?
I watched this YouTuber a few years ago who this guy was hitting on her, and he was into like shit and piss, and he wanted to pay her. He wanted to get her a very nice hotel room and like pay for a nice expensive dinner, and all she had to do was shit and piss in a toilet bowl, and he wanted to eat it out. And he kept calling it toilet treats. So every time I think about it, I think of toilet treats.
Well, David A.R. White is kind of a shit eater when you think about it.
So yeah, so if you like toilet treats, this is a good movie for you. This will fill your belly.
Oh God, but yeah, so this movie is not worth it. I mean, unless of course you either want to just like get rid of $3 of that, burning it, or throwing it off a bridge, or donating it, or pledging it to my Patreon. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There's no reason for you to watch this. It's just gonna stir your collar if you have at least a 2-digit IQ. You know, if you're a free thinker, it's gonna make you pissed off. And unless you're just like one of the zombies in the mall of the religious ilk, this movie, you're going to find something that this movie is going to bother you with, whether it's one of the characters, whether it's the paper-thin plot, whether it's the exposition dump, whether the fact the plot goes absolutely nowhere. It's a pain in the ass.
I just don't understand how, like I said, I just don't understand how Christians don't, like, are they so far up their own asses they can't even call out bullshit movies when they see one? Like, are you really that Christian that you can't at least appreciate a good story told? Like,
honestly, I think a lot of the times, kind of like Melissa Joan Hart's character, they're afraid to voice their opinion because they're afraid they're going to get trampled underfoot for having a disagreement. I mean, we see it all the time in modern religion. Is if you disagree, you're either with us or you're against us. Join or die.
Yeah, and that's like politics too, like liberal and conservative. It's sad though, because it's like my grandma was like that. She was so hardcore Christian that she had Christian music, movies, books, television. Every time I'd spend the night when I was a kid, it was always Christian channels, and it drove me fucking crazy because it was like none of this shit is good. The music isn't good. Like, I mean, Kanye West, he's bringing it into mainstream media, which is something. It's not my cup of tea, but at least it's something. But I mean, I just don't understand why they don't call out bullshit fucking shit when they see it. You know, it doesn't matter if it's Christian or not.
Well, and here's the thing that also drives me insane is we talked about this last time about the rapture not actually existing in the Bible. A Christian heavy metal band that I used to listen to on the regular because I really liked what they were doing, and I thought they really kind of brought out the Christian metal scene. They created a song about the rapture, and they completely. I literally haven't listened to a single one of their songs since. It went from talking about empowerment through faith and overcoming struggles and finding camaraderie, and all of a sudden they talk about the rapture. I'm like, well, done. CD drop, walk out the door.
Well, and it's like that's the thing though, is that so many Christians haven't even read the Bible. So many Christians out there people who claim to be Christian and they know nothing about the religion. They just do what everyone else tells them to. Like, it's a meager existence. It's like you can be a Christian and you can still hold your beliefs and you can still be open-minded and think outside the box. You can still enjoy media that's not heavily Christianized. You can, or you can even write, direct anything your own. Like I don't know. I can't. I always have points and I don't know how to word them right.
Well, no, like, you illustrate a good point.
You can be a Christian and still enjoy other things. You don't have to be so Christian that you can't enjoy it if it's not Christianized, like Harry Potter, witchcraft. Okay, so like, witchcraft. I mean, it exists, but not in the Harry Potter universe, not that kind of spell. You can't cast spells with the wand. There's no such thing as trolls. There's no such thing as, it's like you can't read a fictional book, one that's completely made up because it's not Christian themed. Come on.
Well, let's take it another step further. Is divination falls under the concept of no false gods, one of the 10 commandments. And I am friends with Grey Mystic on Twitter, and I have done tarot readings with her because I'm a curious individual, as you well know, as most of my viewers know.
I've talked to psychics before. It's fun. It doesn't mean, but you don't have. But that's the same thing though. Like going to a psychic and being a Christian, you don't have to take it at face value. Like, you can read the Bible, and if you don't believe there was a great flood, you don't have to believe it.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just metaphor.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of it is extended metaphors, and that's the same case a lot of times with tarot readings. It's a framework for you to think about something, but it's all about interpretation. You don't take it at face value and say, I have to take this word for word, line for line. It's like, here is what is shown to me, and it even says on Grey Mystic's website, divination is meant to be interpreted, not to be taken literally.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of Christians either don't read the Bible or they take it way too seriously. And it's like, have an open mind, like you just take it for what it is, but don't take it too literally. Because because then you have people who eat shellfish despite it being a sin while protesting gay marriage. And it's like, take it at face value, because the Bible has...
Or eating pork, which is against the dietary laws of Leviticus. You have the bacon eaters. Hell, I saw bacon on David A. R. White's plate during the brunch scene.
Yeah, but it's like... Well, dude, there's a phrase. It's like, eat your fish, but don't choke on the bones, like...
Oh, yeah.
Come on. I wish more people were just more open-minded than what they're told and what a book tells them, like... Not everything has to be Christianized for you to enjoy it. Precisely. And if it's shitty, admit it. Just admit it. It's shitty. It's like I had a friend who was a vegan, and she always said she was disgusted by meat, but she had one cheeseburger and she's hooked now. So, just saying.
And now she probably likes, and she's probably married and likes her fiance's or likes her partner's meat.
Well, I don't think she had a penis before, but she might. So.
Because, well, yeah, she does like her meat, so you never know.
She's a lesbian.
She likes pink tacos.
Okay. Whatever.
Anyway, so that pretty much wraps it up for this, despite the number.
Hold on, you just kind of... You there? Boogie, are you there?
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you. You just
okay.
Kind of out there.
Okay.
So uh-oh. You're kind of roboting, dude.
Okay. Hang on, are you still there? Are you? You are. Now you're back.
I'm here.
Hello?
I can hear you. You're roboting on me.
Okay, my computer's acting up again, I think.
We might have
There
to
we go. Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear now. We're back.
Okay. We should end this sooner then. Now you have to
Yeah.
edit.
Okay, so that pretty much sums up the review of this trash movie. Want to think bounce ideas off of.
I
Um,
don't know what you just said. You're roboting.
and okay, please. Links to both of them are.
Holy crap! You're roboting so bad on me. You sound like a rap.
Okay, why is this not turning off?